Stadia has put out a response to the Business Insider article, and we need to talk about it. It's worth pointing out that it's an extremely rare occurrence when the Stadia team actually talks head-on with the community just up front like this. They tweeted out the following. If you hear one thing, hear this. The Stadia team is working really hard on a great future for Stadia and cloud gaming. We hope you agree, and we know the proof is in the playing. We're particularly proud to be offering 50 games to Pro members in February with more than 100 titles to join Stadia in 2022 and plenty of free play days for everyone to enjoy. There's also more feature goodness coming to Stadia too, stuff we can't talk about just yet, but we promise to share when we can. Have a great weekend, Stadians. I've already noticed that the majority of the community has already chosen one of two sides. Either this is all lip service and means nothing, or this is just all proof that the Business Insider article was completely false. The reality of the situation is that it's neither. The Business Insider article never mentioned that Stadia was going to be shut down, just that there was less of a focus on it. And the only quote throughout the whole article that even suggested that was a possibility was an opinion from a former or current employee, in which the following was said. There are plenty of people internally who would love to keep it going, so they are working really hard to make sure it doesn't die, but they're not the ones writing the checks. Once again, that's just a current or former employee explaining how they feel about working at Stadia. That doesn't mean that that's exactly what's going on, or that Stadia is in the process of shutting down the service. There's been some weird misunderstanding that this has been confirmed on this Business Insider article when that's definitely not the case. And that very same line of thinking was exactly what the Stadia team was responding to. It's exactly why the whole message emphasizes on games coming throughout the year as well as features and updates and more free play days. A very interesting sentence of note is where they emphasize that the Stadia team is working really hard on a great future for Stadia and cloud gaming. I emphasize the "and" because they are two separate things. We already know that they're doing white label servicing with AT&T. And on the contrary to what many people think, this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. You have to understand that any sort of research and development that goes into Stadia, its features, and improving the user experience will also apply to their white label service. If you've seen anyone stream Batman Arkham Knight with the AT&T deal, you'll notice that the UI is pretty much Stadia but tinted blue. It makes a ton of sense to keep pushing Stadia along its path because it ends up benefiting both sides of the business. And just to throw in a quick personal opinion here, if Google were to shut Stadia down right now and then decide years later they wanted to re-enter the gaming market, it would be an extremely tough sale to do so. And that line of thinking is what makes me believe Stadia won't ever get shut down. To do so would be creating a huge roadblock for entry into the biggest entertainment industry in the future, and that would be a huge mistake. Once again, that's just my personal opinion though. But let's get back on track and let's talk about the other side of this statement. I need to point out that none of this statement actually refutes what was being said in the article. As I stated earlier, it's more of a reassurance tactic, and that's about it. And while it is a rare occurrence that Google directly comments on a rumor regarding to Stadia, it has happened in the past, and it's worth pointing out how they handled that situation in comparison. When a report was going around that Google cancelled the Stadia exclusive title by Hideo Kojima that was horror related, they came out and flat out denied the entire report. It was extremely blunt as well. They just came out and said it, that it was inaccurate and reported hearsay as fact. That's the words directly from Google, not mine. In this case, we're not hearing that sort of upfront rebuttal. It's worth noting that this would be a time for that sort of statement to be made as well, considering how much traction the article is getting everywhere. Now it's time I touch on the subject of people claiming that nothing within this article is new. That's just flat out false. There's a lot of stuff we never knew about, such as the potential dealings with Bungie, Capcom, and Peloton. And as someone who's been covering Stadia from the very get-go, there's a lot of people here who still don't believe that white labeling is a thing that Google is interested in. Yes, even post AT&T Batman Arkham Knight. A lot of the people out there need to understand that white labeling isn't necessarily a bad thing and will in fact help Stadia grow even further, just in a different way than what most people would have expected out of the platform. The shift in focus is a big deal, I'm not going to deny that, and a lot of people probably need to readjust their expectations for what they expect to see out of Stadia. I said it in the last video and I'll say it here again. If you weren't happy with Stadia's offering last year, you're probably not going to be happy this year. Google's approach is going to take a lot longer this time around, and everything you remember from this presentation and this specific image, you need to try and understand that the Stadia of today is a very different Stadia that was announced back then. Some of the people who walked on stage to talk about Stadia don't even work at Google anymore or move to different departments within Google. Then there's the statement about Stadia having more teraflops than both the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X combined. And regardless whether that statement is true, most of the ports we receive run around the level of an Xbox One X, if not a bit under it. And then they talked about how Stadia exclusive games could be built with the cloud in mind to really take advantage of it and create something very, very unique. And then Stadia Games and Entertainment shut down before we even really got to see an example of what that meant. I could keep going, but I think the picture has been made clear by now. Stadia's ambitions are different today, and the way they market Stadia has changed a lot too. For the better, I would say, because what they're marketing now definitely fits to what they're trying to sell you. And honestly, I don't doubt what they said in that presentation was true and that all of that was possible, but Stadia didn't take off the way Google expected it to. And that's more than likely why the refocus is happening from Stadia the consumer product to Google Stream the white labeling service. In turn, this does mean there's probably less funding for the things that would make you as a consumer of Stadia happy. And by that, I mean exclusive titles or even getting third-party deals done for Stadia so they bring their games over, as well as marketing events to hype up the community like Stadia Connects to announce big new titles arriving soon. When was the last time we got a Stadia Connect? It's been a good while. When was the last time Stadia showed up at the Game Awards? It's been a good while. When was the last time Stadia actually announced something during E3 season? You guessed it, it's been a good while. And if you're wondering about games, look at the deal that was made with Chia. Initially a Stadia exclusive, now signed a deal with PlayStation and Epic. Look at the NBA 2K series. Used to launch day and date on Stadia, but if you take a look right now, the latest entry isn't here. And I want to make one point very clear, because anytime somebody talks negative about Stadia, they bring up the fact that this same could be applied to Amazon Luna, GeForce Now, or other cloud gaming services. My simple response to that is, so what? That doesn't mean I can't expect more out of Stadia. I applaud them when they deserve an applause, and I'll criticize them when they deserve critique. The 3080 tier wowed me, and it's become my go-to solution, but that doesn't mean it's for everyone, and I've made that very clear. The user experience is still super far behind that of Stadia. I've recently made a video on Xbox Cloud Gaming and how it provides amazing value with its Game Pass subscription cost, but at the same time, it's terribly inconsistent from game to game. And Amazon Luna, I barely talk about on the channel because it barely exists to me. It's not available where I live, so how can I talk about something I can't actually play? These problems don't need to be compared, it makes no sense to do so. My concern with Google Stadia isn't whether or not it's gonna survive. I think it'll be around for a long time. My biggest concern is whether or not Google is giving the Stadia team enough funding to make sure that they can retain the players that currently exist. I have little to no doubt that the team over there cares and wants to make this a successful product, as much as it can be. And as of late, I do think they've been doing a better job than they have been in the past about communicating with the audience. Is it perfect in everything I ever wanted? No, of course not. There is room for improvement, but I feel like they've been much more honest with the community than ever before. Of course, they're not going to come out and say that they're investing less in Stadia or focusing on the Google Stream subject. It makes no sense as a business, but they have definitely been highlighting the importance of free play days as well as the increase in Stadia Pro games. At this point in time, I truly believe that's where the main attraction and value of Stadia lies, and I have a feeling that's only going to increase from here on out. They're going to continue to build on Stadia, and at one point, it may be that very same platform that they talked about originally, but it's going to take more time than initially thought to get there. I would love to see a roadmap and them discuss in detail where they see Stadia heading now, but I genuinely don't expect them to do it because it probably wouldn't be a good business move. At this point in time, I'm just hoping that the 100 games they're bringing over this year will speak for themselves, because we don't really know what they are. But I do think they'll have some heavy hitters throughout. Whether or not there's enough of them for you to stick around is entirely up to you. As for myself, I'll be sticking around and using Stadia and continuing to cover it on the channel to see where it goes. I genuinely do like the platform, and I really do respect the Stadia team for what they've accomplished so far in the cloud gaming space. That said, Stadia is not my only way to play. I have other cloud gaming services like GFN, xCloud, as well as PlayStation Now on top of my gaming consoles and PC. I'm looking forward to this new direction that Stadia ends up taking and seeing how it plays out for them. And whether or not you decide to stick around and use Stadia throughout this, or maybe you plan on picking up another platform alongside it, I respect your choice. The fact remains is that Stadia's outlook is very different than what we all thought it was gonna be back in 2019. Go back to my old videos of 2019, or any other cloud gaming YouTubers' videos of 2019. There was a ton of excitement for things that just didn't play out, and that's the fact of it. But regardless of that, I'm still excited to see the future of Stadia and how it grows, the future of cloud gaming and how it expands. And with that, we wrap up my thoughts on this article and everything that's going on. If any other statement gets shared, I will be covering it, don't worry. But for now, it's time to go back to the regularly scheduled content of covering all the cloud gaming goodness that's going around, regardless of service name or platform. And I ask, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out, and if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. As always, this has been the Virtual Cloud, giving you the latest and greatest on everything cloud gaming and VR related, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.